I'm Kevin. This is Jeff, and we're here at Cyberlancers. And today we're going to talk to you a little bit about performance and how it relates to your website. So, Jeff, you want to kick us off? When I say the word performance on a website, what does that bring to mind?
Speed. That's what it brings to mind to me.
Said.
A website that comes up quickly, and especially on a mobile device.
Yeah.
And what really kind of brought this to my mind, an experience that I had last year, is I was at the bus stop waiting for my son, and the cell service wasn't very good there. So I was bored waiting for the bus to come, and I'm trying to pull up some websites to do a little bit of research. And I had like one bar of 4G, which I'm sure many of you have been out there. You've got one bar of cell service and you're trying to use the internet, and it's just infuriating. But what was interesting is, as I was going through there, some sites were very good and came up really fast and I was able to use them, and other sites were non-responsive.
Yeah.
And that's what really got me thinking about performance. Is it's being able to have your site functioning and working in even the lowest of cell phone locations. And especially these days, everyone's got cell phones, but towers aren't going up fast enough. And so we're putting houses in remote locations, homes in remote areas. You've got, they still call it like the digital divide, the last mile, where you've got people who are in areas that aren't served by broadband. They maybe have satellite with high latency. And so they don't have this high-speed internet that we come to know. And so as developers, a lot of times we're using these high speeds, and we don't notice issues. Like, everything works great for us. It isn't
until on my machine. Yeah.
It isn't until you start utilizing it on another device, or you utilize some of the tools to slow down your internet connection, that you really notice these different types of issues.
Absolutely. Yeah, particularly where I'm from, where I grew up in the country, we are definitely part of that last mile, as they say. And we have internet, but it definitely is not considered broadband speed. But if you build your website correctly, it can still be very, very functional. And one of the things that was really surprising to me is when Google first sort of announced how important performance was in terms of how they rank it. They've subsequently launched their Google Lighthouse, which automatically measures how fast your site is. People were taken aback and said, well, why am I getting ranked? Your page takes 12 seconds to load. Everyone can see this. It's not a bad thing to try to make it load in under 3 seconds, under a second. I mean, that is a good goal.
And I wouldn't say it's that Google's penalizing you because of speed.
No.
Google has come out and said they are going to rank sites that have a better user experience higher than those that don't.
Yes.
And page speed is one of those factors.
Absolutely.
If you don't have, and especially, I guess I should say, page speed on a mobile device.
Right.
Google has gone mobile first. And so everything has to work on mobile. Their crawler is a mobile crawler. It crawls your website as a mobile device.
Yeah.
And it's going to be measuring the speed and how your site looks on a mobile device.
Yeah. And that's not a bad thing. I know we don't want to forget about tablets and desktops and whatnot, but those also benefit from speed performance. So if we build for mobile first, we make it great, when you're out in the field on the cell phones, when you get back in the office and are on your larger device or your larger screens, it's still going to be, a better customer experience.
Yep. I would say probably the number one performance killer. Most of you have seen this out there. Designers love to do it. Is when you go to the homepage, there's that huge banner image where they have a carousel of multiple images that appear at the top there, or even a video.
Right. I call it the 2010 circa website.
Yeah.
They all look exactly the same.
They all have it. But what happens is when you come in with a desktop centric view,
Yeah.
That image is like 1600 by 1280. It's massive. Maybe it's probably even larger than 1600 because now we're going bigger and bigger and bigger monitors with higher resolution. So in order for that image to look good, and your designers are always designing on these large computer devices, your image is going to be huge. And so the image that you're given, probably from a designer, is like a 5 megabyte file, if not more. Just these massively large files. And if you're not thinking about performance first, what's going to happen is you're going to put in that image that you were given because the designers say, I want my image to look good on all devices.
Yeah.
So you're going to put in that large image and you're going to keep that large image. Now you've got a person on the phone in a low bandwidth area trying to get that 5 megabyte file or maybe even 25 megabyte file, and the rest of the page won't load as it's line by line trying to bring in that huge image. And so it's thinking about things like that and how can you make it so that you're still producing a high quality image, producing a high quality website, but keeping in mind those speed and bandwidth issues that people are going to have.
Yeah, it's a real balancing act there, isn't it? So even as our devices get higher and higher quality, you want high resolution images, but at very low size, and that can be done. So obviously optimizing images, number one thing out of the gate you start with, and definitely.
Yeah.
What's another couple things that you think of? What's another couple performance killers when it comes to websites?
I mean, honestly, a lot of it is page sizes and like file sizes.
Yep.
So you've got a lot of these websites that to be functional and to do all the cool little things like having scrolling images or drop down menus, animation, all of those take what's called JavaScript to run it in the background and a lot of style sheets. So they call it CSS, cascading style sheets. But on your browser, these are the elements that go and create how the page is going to look and how the page is going to run. And you need all of this code in order to tell the browser how it should function. But the problem is that a lot of times we go and as developers, we're like, why reinvent the wheel?
Right.
We're going to go and use something that someone already built.
Oh.
So we're just going to go and take that and utilize it. But a lot of times what happens is we start grabbing all of these things and use them, and it starts adding on to the size of the page, adding more and more and more that needs to get downloaded in order for that page to run. And then I'll be honest here, as developers, sometimes we're a little lazy.
Shortcuts. I like to call it shortcuts.
And what will happen is we'll go and we'll put in something that we'll be using at one time or one iteration of the website. And then we change the website and we don't need that anymore, but we forget to take it out.
Yeah.
And so then what happens is you start getting bloat and you start adding more and more to the site without taking things away that you're no longer using. And so you're just increasing the page more and more. A fun thing for marketers out there is they love to track and everything that happens. They feed off of the analytics. And so what will happen is they'll add in third-party kind of JavaScript information so that they can get analytic information about the people who are visiting their websites. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times, because you're relying on a third party that you don't have access to their code, that starts to slow things down. And there's nothing you can do about it because you don't have access to it. So that is a lot of times where you start seeing a lot of these performance hits.
Right. Yeah, you have to be very, very careful with third-party scripts and JavaScript that you're not in control of, for sure. And I get it. I mean, a lot of the marketing automation tools with Marketo and Salesforce, I mean, these are great, fantastic tools for marketers, but there's that balancing act. You really have to be careful on what scripts you put on and what's left off and where it's put in the page, for sure.
And I think one of the things that's important here, and this is something that Kevin and I are really good at, is helping bridge the gap between marketing and the IT department. because they have conflicting goals. IT wants to go and create the code, create the style sheets, create the architecture that's going to be clean, that's going to be reusable, and that's going to deliver the website that they were given from the designers. They're not always thinking about performance. They're thinking about, when they think about performance, most of the time it's on the back end. They don't think about the front end performance because that's usually given to them from another team. It's a user experience, a user interface team that'll hand them the HTML, the style sheets, and then the developers are responsible most of the time for the JavaScript. And since they don't have control over what the designers and what the user interface people are creating, they just kind of leave it with what it is, and no one's thinking about the performance.
Yeah.
Whereas then your marketing team is going and they're looking at the SEO, they're looking at the technical SEO, they're looking at the Google Lighthouse, they're looking at the Web Core Vitals numbers, and they're saying our performance is bad. Which, as a developer, when you hear the performance is bad, that's like a stab in the gut.
Yeah.
It makes you feel like you're telling me I'm doing a bad job. And so you start getting this conflict, this butting of heads by IT thinking that marketing is telling them you're doing a bad job, and marketing feeling that IT doesn't want to work with them to help them with their goal. And that's where Kevin and I are able to step in and bridge that gap between the two, because we've worked with marketing about the performance. We've been on the other side with IT. We understand how to go and bridge that gap, and for everyone to work together and to be able to say, okay, page speed is slow, and help the development team figure out where exactly are those slowdowns, because it's not always easy to find.
No.
You have to understand how a browser loads a web page. Most developers don't understand how a browser creates a web page from the HTML. That's just not something that's taught. But it's something you need to understand if you want to know why it's taking a long time for your initial image to show up. If you've done the things like reducing the size of the image and you're still getting a warning that it's too slow, well, it's because there's other factors that are happening with determining the layout of that page that cause that image to not load when you think that it should be loading. And those are items that Kevin and I are able to help out and help give some additional information to the development team to help them fix these issues so that marketing can reach their goal. So marketing can reach their goals.
Yeah, and there's a real live real world example that jumps to mind when it comes to this performance and some of the audit work that Jeff and I are accustomed to kind of helping companies with. And that is, we had a big healthcare company come to us, and they basically, up to the point when they brought us on board, they have tried over a year to get their performance down. And where did they spend that year? They spent it with the server team, IT, trying to get the servers faster, and everything was working great on that side. And it wasn't until we came in and just really analyzed the front end code and the third-party scripts and the wonderful frameworks that gave us a leg up, but had a lot of bloat that carried with them. We had to examine all those, and then lo and behold, that's when we were able to finally take them from, I think they were averaging over 12-second page load times to well under 3 seconds. You know, we got up to above a 90 on performance in Google Lighthouse. So yeah, that's the kind of thing we're looking at.
Yeah, and what we're seeing by, like we've said, Google is placing such an emphasis on performance now. We've been saying this for years, that you've got to worry about your performance because Google's going to start to ding you. And as of around May of this year, when Google did a change to their search engine algorithm, people are now finding that they're getting dinged, and now everyone's worried about this. And we're starting to see this become an issue. So if you're one of those folks, if you're all of a sudden wondering why your search engine rankings are lower, you're starting to investigate this Google Lighthouse, the Web Core Vitals, and you're wondering, how can I fix this? Where do I start? How do I convince my IT team that this is something important to work on? Reach out to Kevin and I here at CyberLancers. We'd love to talk to you. We'd love to just give you a free consultation to figure out if there's something that we can do to help you and maybe just bring a little bit more light into the subject. So thanks for your
Thanks.
time.